China's record number of vacant houses and urban projects, sitting at over 50 million units and growing, are an increasingly worrying domestic challenge for the Chinese government. Known as ghost cities, these developments have created a housing bubble representative of decades of Chinese progress. The phrase ghost city might imply a city once full of life but now abandoned, but China's ghost cities are brand new, with towering high-rises seemingly never populated. Many had remained that way for years, byproducts of rapid economic growth that continue to plague the nation's urban planning strategy. In the face of China's never-ending urbanization spree, why are there still so many unpopulated cities, and what crazy policies led to this failure? Ghost cities come in many shapes and sizes. While information about them is scarce, studies have identified some 50 municipalities of varying sizes, often labeled as development areas, new areas, or eco-cities. They're often located on the outskirts of second and third tier Chinese cities. Most are fully complete, but some were suspended mid-construction. The term ghost city was first used by photographers and journalists documenting the Kangbashi district. Located in Ordos, or Inner Mongolia, Kangbashi is one of the largest and most well-known ghost cities. Originally designed to accommodate over 1 million residents, the urban mega project only housed about 20,000 people when it gained international attention around 2009. During that time, journalists flocked to Kangbashi to document its impressive but empty landmarks and buildings. In the years since, the world has directed more attention to these intriguing urban megaprojects, but data from local Chinese governments remains scarce. What we know is that apartments erected in ghost cities are rapidly purchased by homeowners who have no intention of moving in. Prices then steadily increase. The result is a massive and worrying property bubble. Most new urban projects are commissioned by local governments. An unusual fact is that officials typically spend anywhere from 2 to 5 years in a regional position before being transferred by Beijing. To improve their track record, local officials often fight to demonstrate concrete economic growth, local development during their term. Deciding to build a new town is just one simple way to demonstrate results. Officials have a strong incentive to construct new cities, as they indicate economic progress in a clear and measurable way. In the late 20th century, many local governments had abundant land that they could lease out to developers to boost economic activity, which kick-started this city-building trend. Private developers were also eager to jump on board because demand for new houses was insatiable. Ghost city property buyers are primarily middle and upper-class citizens who want a secondary property for investment purposes. Chinese property investment is very different from American investment. Chinese households at all income levels save more on average. But with strict investment regulations in place, many turn to buying real estate as it's their only option. Chinese families are also more likely to purchase additional properties for future generations of children and grandchildren. There is little incentive for owners to rent out these spaces and risk taking in bad tenants because most places in China do not have property tax. In fact, many of the units remain unfurnished for the whole duration of the ownership. Because the officials were not particularly concerned with actually populating these cities, as there is no incentive to do so, there were initiatives or policies in place to effectively regulate ownership or bring in physical residents. Many of the cities may have nice stadiums, museums, and government buildings, but they lack economic activity and other attractive functions. This is why those cities have very few permanent occupancies, often composed of government officials and retired elders. In 2020, the total value of China's housing market was over 52 trillion, dwarfing the US bond market. While properties in top-tier cities are so popular they require lotteries, the value of housing in the underpopulated cities often remains underwhelming. If a ghost city never receives the anticipated attention, homeowners are at risk of losing large chunks of their investment. The local governments also face the long-lasting consequences of draining resources to maintain empty cities. This leads to some calling them wasted cities. The central government was well aware of this issue early on and tried to implement measures to curb the development. Local officials found workarounds and loopholes to continue their projects. China's latest urban megaproject, the Xianggang New Area, was commissioned by President Xi Jinping in 2017 as a new development area outside Beijing with the purpose of strengthening economic connections between Beijing and Tianjin. Unlike the ghost cities, this new area is planned by and has received full logistical support of the central government. It is often called the brainchild of Xi Jinping. Supporters compare the potential of this new city to Pudong and Shenzhen, both of which were built in the last 40 years and saw explosive success. However, there are many critics that see the reflection of Kangbashi in this project, namely because it is also built in the remote outskirts. Despite the uncertainties, the central government seems determined to bring about this new area's success. In 2019, State News has revealed the 2018 to 2023 master plan, which will gradually turn Zhengdong into a competitive and eco-friendly city and a national model of high-quality development. The new area already has a reported population of 1.2 million, a staggering number compared to previous examples. However, this success must be contextualized by the fact that the government takes full control of the real estate market in the city. From housing to office space, nothing is privately sold or owned for now. Currently, only selected businesses and secondary government functions from Beijing are allowed to move in. Residents are chosen and assigned apartment units. There are also strict environmental and social regulations in place to help shape the city. For the rest of China's ghost cities that don't have the luxury of being called President Xi Jinping's brainchild, it seems that some of the huge bets may finally be showing some return. In 2021, Bloomberg ran an article titled, "China's Ghost Cities Are Finally Stirring to Life After Years of Empty Streets." They conclude, "It's hard to show how China's reputed ghost cities are faring collectively, as government data isn't available. What is clear is that local governments can throw money at these projects for years and years. In the short term, however, not all of these cities are meeting the same fate." Bloomberg Businessweek discovered on recent visits to 3 of them that when it comes to urbanization, China is playing a very long game. For Ordos, the original ghost city, they write, was once the archetypal ghost city 10 years ago. With barren boulevards and empty buildings stacked in the desert, local officials are adamant that things have changed. They say 91% of homes in the district are occupied and that almost 120,000 people live there. This still falls far short of the original 1 million target set out for Ordos. Chinese ghost cities may be seen as failures of urban planning and poor policies focused on too much growth too fast, but they also represent the will of the government, showing any means necessary to justify exaggerated growth projections.